Ankur, thank you very much for the introduction. Let me start by the very frustration that every developer and release manager goes through. And as Ankur said, I started my career as a game developer, and I still remember the multiple times during the day when I had to leave everything I do because my build started running and I had to go consume coffee. No, I didn't do yoga, but I did started chatting with my colleagues and looking for things to do during that time. If I would even think about starting a new project or a task that would, just the idea of context switching would be just going away. And if my build was too long and better to run during the night, I would very often come in the morning to the office to find that the build broke or that the quality is not very satisfactory, but I had to compromise. So this is a common pain that we see all across the organization and the industry as a whole. I mean, today, even more than my experience 20 years ago, when the developers run the debug code and building the code with much more code base, bigger code base than we had before, you have to wait for the build to complete. You have to wait for the commit triggered build to complete on the CI side. You have to wait for the unit test to complete. And all in all, after you get the feedback, you start from square one again, fixing, building, committing, and so on. And this really creates quite a few pockets of time during the day of unnecessary wait times. And the frequent context switching, moving between projects. But at the end of the day, if I have much less iterations that I can run because I don't have the time to run as many as I want, this had a serious impact to the quality. If you take one developer that builds 10 times a day versus someone else that just has the night build, you can guess who will have the higher quality. So if we are looking beyond the developer's frustration, more at a high level from a DevOps perspective, or if you're a release manager, you probably know that in order for your assembly line to really work well, you really need to have speedy delivery. So the very first station of our assembly line is the gated check-in. You really want every commit to trigger a build. But if that build takes half an hour, 1 hour, 5 hours, that means that I'm going to have very large queue waiting for the builds to finish. A lot of conflicts. I'm going to spend, as a DevOps manager or release manager, a lot of time doing bisect investigations. Who broke my build? And then chasing those developers out. So I can't really do my job, and the developers have to wait a very long time for their build to complete. Then moving to the next station in our assembly line, the testing. As a release manager, you want to have as many tests as possible. But if those tests are very slow, that means that I cannot really fulfill what I want to do. I can run much fewer cycles of tests, and eventually the feedback to the developer comes back in a delay instead of within minutes or hours. If my feedback to the developer on fixes they need to do takes days, they probably move on to another project, and I don't know if their context switch allow them to move back or the time allows to do that, but definitely it breaks the whole cycle of continuous integration of getting things through that assembly line as quickly as possible. As a release manager, I want my screen to be green. I want to see, I don't want to see any builds that have been broken. I don't want to see any tests that have been failed. I will see some reds, but I want them to be as few as possible. When it's not very speedy, the slowness itself creates by its own quite a few issues that will cause it to see reds. And then in turn, as a company, we will see that our products is not in the quality we want it to be, and the release frequency is not going to be very high. Now, if you think of the Amazons of the world and Netflix and Google, for them being able to release multiple times a day is not a benefit, it's a necessity. And this has slowly become the reality of every company that releases software. We want to release our software as quickly as possible, as frequent as possible, and in very high quality. And as you can see here, speed is a very important factor of all that. Now, we used to think that, well, hardware will be better next year. You probably remember the Moore's law that says that processor speed is doubling every 2 years, which was true up until recently, and now we're talking about doubling processor speed every 20 years. So this is not necessarily going to happen. So most of the companies try to throw hardware at the problem and say, if I buy more hardware or cloud resources, everything is going to speed up. So first, it's very, very expensive to keep investing in hardware and cloud. As my code base keeps growing, my pipeline keeps growing, and so on. This will never end. But also, not every problem can be solved with more hardware. So imagine if I would have that magic wand that that converts your laptop, the one you're using right now, into a supercomputer, into a computer that has as many cores as you need. If you need 500 cores, it will get you 500 cores immediately. If my CI server needs 5,000 cores, it will get 5,000 cores. You know that without buying any single core, without buying any new hardware. How is that made possible? So this is a good introduction into Incredibuild, because we make that magic happen. Incredibuild helps to turbocharge development cycles. The technology is well proven. It's used by over than 1,400 companies, almost 20 years in the market. Since we're part of Visual Studio, there are millions of developers using Incredibuild, about 200,000 developers, commercial users using Incredibuild. And what we do actually is a virtualized distributed processing technology. This is a very long sentence. I'll explain it very shortly, but what you should care about that it really turns every computer, every host into a supercomputer. And when you have a supercomputer, you can build your tests. You can build your code much faster. You can run your tests much faster, and you can have much less frustration. We are using, you can still use your same code, same processes, same tools. Everything is the same. It just goes faster. Well, the only downside you should know about is that it's gonna probably reduce your coffee consumption. So, how this magic really works. I like to see Incredibuild as the Airbnb of cores. Why Airbnb? Because Airbnb brought this idea that if I want to be in the tourism business, I don't need to buy a hotel. I can leverage my own apartment when it has vacancy to rent it out. And this is pretty much what we do at Incredibuild. Your laptop right now is probably not very busy, maybe 10, 20%. Would you mind if I grab the remaining 80% if I need it? And in exchange, whenever you need Build does, it's kind of the matchmaker between cores that are available and people that need those cores in the organization, which actually allow you to use the cores that organization already own to run better processes. So this is, in essence, what Incredibuild does. We see a lot of setups where you have a team of 50 developers with 16 core machines, and they are just implementing, installing Incredibuild on all these machines, and they are utilizing this grid to build their code much faster. Same goes for the CI. So in order for you to really understand that magic and understand how it really applies to issues that you are experiencing at your organization, let's dive a little bit deeper. So the very first step in virtualization is taking a large job and break it down into smaller pieces. Why is that important? If I have a 2-minute job, it's not an issue. But what if I have a unit test job that runs for hours and it has about 500 tests that could potentially run on 500 different cores? Do I have a 500 core machine? No, I don't. Do I have a 500 core VM or EC2 on AWS? No, I don't. So that means that any machine that you would be allocating for that job would be underpowered and would be slow compared to the utopic 500 core machine. But if you break this up into smaller pieces and you distribute them to remote machines that can run it in parallel, each one of them can have maybe even 2 cores, then you're able to execute that job much better than the Jenkins build nodes or any other machine that is bounded to its own physical limitations of the hardware and the number of cores and memory that it has. So Incredibuild really automatically take that build or that test and break it up. We see a lot in DevOps space and in the CI that you have people writing scripts to break down dependencies, and this is very costly to keep maintaining those scripts because they break, they change, the code change. You really need to understand the code. Incredibuild does all that automatically, so you don't really need to do any scripting. So now that I have those small pieces, I need to build a virtual grid. And virtual grid on the fly, I mean not a grid for my company, not a grid for myself. It's actually a grid for the job that I'm running, because every job is different. Every job requires different number of cores and different prerequisites of the tools that I'm using, and is run differently. So Incredibuild is actually virtualizing the network per each separate job, and also for each moment of the job. And I'll touch upon that because it's a very important point. When we start the virtualization, the trigger is very simple. It's either the CI trying to run a build or a test, or I'm in Visual Studio and I'm building my code. It automatically triggers Incredibuild to start looking for those available cores in the network. If I don't have enough in the network and I want to use cloud, Incredibuild will also spin up some instances on the cloud to get all those 500 cores that I need. Now, the idea of resizing during the execution is also very important, because those long jobs have their peaks and valleys. At some point, they consume all the 500 cores. Some points they just consume 3 if it's in the linking stage. So if I would assign a 64-core machine, at some point it will be overpowered, and at some point it will be underpowered, just because it has a constant setting of number of cores and memory at any given point in time, while the demand is changing throughout the execution. Incredibuild is resizing the grid on the fly throughout execution. So when my job requires those 500 cores, we will have all these available for you. When it drops down to 10, Incredibuild will spin down those cloud resources, so you don't need to wait and pay for them, and release those cores that have been using so other people can use them. And this really allows maximum utilization of the hardware you own in the organization, so nothing goes to waste. And also, if you do heavy cloud usage, that allows optimal usage and lower costs. And the last steps is the virtualization. So I'm running currently CMake on Visual Studio on my machine. How can I know what happens on the other side if that remote machine that Incredibuild distribute to is the secretary machine that only has the Office? How can it run my code? How can it build my code or the testing and so on? So what Incredibuild does is, when I trigger that job on my machine, Incredibuild starts to investigate what am I doing and what are the dependencies, what are the system DLLs and the registry items and the applications I'm using, and so on and so forth, to really get a package that if I replicate it on the remote machine, on the agent machine, it will be able to fulfill my job. So this is the process of virtualization that just happens automatically. You don't need to configure Incredibuild. You don't need to explain Incredibuild what is Qt or what is NUnit or ARM and so on. It just figure it out on its own. You didn't have to call IT to do that. And this is very important because remember the last time you needed IT to set up a new hardware for you or a new cloud instance for you. By the time you write a ticket and it takes a few days for them to respond and then a few days to fulfill, it's been a week at least until you get what you need. With Incredibuild, you just press the F5 of building the code and automatically you get the allocation of hardware and provisioning and installation of everything that is needed on these machines. And using the same code and same processes and same tools. And this is also important to understand when we talk about integration. Incredibuild has made integration very simple. Basically, you run Incredibuild as a command line. So if my Jenkins run G-tests as one of the tasks and it runs G-tests as a command line, all you need to do is replace that command to run G-test to instead run Incredibuild, where G-test is one of the parameters. And from that point on, Incredibuild will just take care of all the rest and run all these tests for you. So this is the only integration you have to do. So as far as IDEs, Incredibuild is part of Visual Studio's add-ons for a few years already. It's natively integrated. If you're using Qt Creator, it's part of the open source of Qt Creator. So it will be a seamless use of Incredibuild. And also many of the make and build tools are integrated. On the CI side, it's simply replacing the command line. So basically any CI that you choose would work well with Incredibuild along with the testing, the code analysis, and so on. Because Incredibuild is very generic and can pick up on many other applications that are multi-threaded and run through a command line, multi-process run through a command line. A lot of our customers are using Incredibuild in a very creative way for tasks that we never heard of. We see a lot of quant analysis and rendering and code signing and obfuscation, simulation. So I really welcome you to try to innovate on how you use Incredibuild. As far as the code, we mainly accelerate C and C++ code, not much Java and scripting languages, and it runs both on Linux and on Windows. Visualization is very important because as human beings, when we look at thousands of pieces of data, we cannot comprehend it. But when it comes color-coded, you can easily spot that one task that is yellow or one task that is red and address it immediately. You can simply see on my Gantt chart here the white spaces and ask yourself, why is there a dependency? Who built that dependency? Maybe we can remove it. So visually, you can understand what else is missing to run in the most optimal way. So this is a tool that our customers are using on a daily basis to monitor the build processes and the testing and keep improving it. You can also see here the native integration into Visual Studio and that you have a menu built into the Visual Studio to build a solution through Incredibuild rather than the internal make and build tools. And by the way, I did not mention at the beginning of the session is that if you have any questions, please already write them into the chat window and we'll address them at the end. So up until now, we talked about the pain, we talked about how Incredibuild works, but now I want to show you the results. and what our customers are experiencing after using Incredibuild. So first, we were very curious to see how the workload looks like for our customers, and we've taken a snapshot of a medium-sized game development studio, and we measured the number of builds that they've done in just 1 week and the compute power they consumed. And we were quite amazed to see about 10,000 builds, incremental and full builds, and overall 52,000 compute hours. Now, out of these, we were able to save them 8.3 thousand hours of build. Now, this is not including the CI, this is just the build by the developers. When you look at that and you realize 8,000 hours in just 1 week, you understand this is 8,000 of frustration, 8,000 of coffee breaks, and 8,000 of the probably most expensive resource in the organization. And this is just for 1 week. So the problem is big, and the ROI is very, very clear and easy to understand. So let's look at a few case studies. I'm pretty sure that these stories apply to your organization one way or the other. So let's start with Philips. Philips Algotech team is based in Israel, and they focus on medical imaging software. And they have millions of lines of codes, as you can imagine, and their build is just taking over than 3 hours, and it crosses about 400 projects, and having 3 hours of builds doesn't allow them to build during the day. And when they do the integration tests at night and trying to integrate everything together, the cycle is so long that even a full night wasn't sufficient. So when they come in the morning, they had to use these servers for other things, and if the build hasn't completed, then they run into issues. This, of course, impacted productivity and quality. So they've implemented Incredibuild. It just takes them a few hours to get everyone to use it. And here are the benchmarks that they've reported to us. Those small builds of 30 minutes turned into 3 minutes builds, which allowed them to do the commit triggered builds very easily. And those 3 hours turned into 34 minutes. So that is allowing them very easily to move from nightly builds into building multiple times per day. And that really enabled them to move into true continuous integration process and having higher productivity and improved quality. The next one I want to talk about is Minitab. Minitab is a US-based company building one of the leading statistical analysis tool. Perhaps you use it in during your university days. They have a large code base, but also the tests are very long. And they looked at 11 hours of testing. And at the same time, they were trying to migrate their CI into Azure DevOps. And when you have 11-hour tests and you have 60 minutes for each code to build, that not only means that they cannot do real continuous integration, but that also means that they're going to pay a lot for their cloud. They need many more instances, and the cloud cost is going to be way too much more than they were allocating. They've been using Incredibuild on-prem before, and they knew the magic that we can create, and they were quite stunned to see that 11-hour test on GTest turned into 11 minutes, 60 times faster execution. So that actually allowed them to move into daily and ongoing testing. The builds turned from 60 minutes down to 20 minutes, and that allowed them to do the Git triggered commits the git commit triggers the build, and really moving into continuous integration. They were very happy that now they can be agile and that they can go through this assembly line much faster and using the cloud resources in a very cost-effective way. And one last story is by NCR. You may know NCR from the ATM machines. This specific team, Retalix, is actually building one of the world-leading point-of-sale systems. With Retalix, just like many other embedded and especially medical devices, it's very heavy on the testing. And they had about 30,000 unit tests done on every code that you commit. And the company was adamant about moving into a shift left testing. So every developer runs those tests before they commit the code. Now, if those tests take 2 hours to run, guess what? If you're a developer, you just don't commit the code. You commit it maybe once a week because you really don't want to wait for those 2 hours. So having very infrequent commits to the CI and very lengthy testing time, once again, did not allow them to fulfill their all DevOps methodology and continuous integration, especially that shift left culture. They also had to spend a lot of time finding more machines to run it and upgrading the tests and upgrading the test systems. So the developers were very busy on doing anything else but coding. They implemented Incredibuild, and within hours of installation, they were able to reduce the integration test from 50 minutes down to 1 minute and 20 seconds. Those 30,000 unit tests dropped to 12 minutes. And as a result, they moved into that real continuous integration shift left testing, again, where you do the testing before you commit to the CI, and then your code comes to the CI much cleaner, which then allowed them to have that green utopic screen for the DevOps and release managers. So wrapping up, I want you to look again after you learn about Incredibuild and what we do and the data that it creates and the customer stories. Let's look at the assembly line again. We have the test, the build stage at the very beginning. If we can accelerate those builds, if we have shorter builds, that means that we can build many more times per day. Developers can commit their code many more times per day. Having lower queues mean that they have to wait much less. And you have, as a result, much less conflicts and have to spend much less time on bisecting who broke my code. Then let's move to the next station in our assembly line, the testing, having accelerated tests and automatically breaking it down to pieces. So I don't need to manually change my scripting all the time as the code changes. It means I can be much more agile, I can do many more iterations, I can have much faster feedback to developers so they don't need to wait days until they hear how they code actually worked. And that allowed me to do faster time to repair if I have production issues and want to get them fixed as soon as possible. So bottom line, having non-compromised quality and faster time to market, if I can speed up all these assembly line process. So I hope this was clear and educational for you guys. And if you haven't done so up until now, this is the moment to think. If you have builds that are longer than a few minutes, if your test cycles are too long and you want to shorten them, then it's very easy. You just download Incredibuild. It's free for up to 30 days. You don't need any special setup on configuration. Usually it's just plug and play, not always, but it might be the case for you. But in any case, I'm happy to also announce for our Indian audience that we have partnered with Meteonic Innovation. It's a great company with great people. They help companies to improve their development cycles, their test tools and DevOps tools. And if you wish to have some help and get a quote, you can contact Shiva. You can get his email address here. So we want you to really get good care directly from a company that is local to you. So with that, I'll pause here and we'll move into questions.
Yeah, I have a question. So if someone is not willing to buy hardware, but they just buy in Incredibuild license, do you think they will get improvement in their build time?
Yes, definitely. If it's just me and 5 colleagues on laptops, for example, I can just accelerate my code on their laptops. In fact, I could configure Incredibuild to run nothing on my laptop. So when I build my code, my computer is free to do other things. So definitely, yes, you can accelerate without buying any hardware. That's the whole idea.
Okay, and Asif, we got some questions from chat. Can I read it now?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question is from, okay, name is confidential. Okay, so we only run full rebuilds at night. So we don't care if it is taking more time, maybe some hours. Could you please let us know the benefits of using Incredibuild in this case?
So you don't really have continuous integration. You run, people commit their code, and at night you run the full build. And if you don't care how long it runs and it doesn't affect your business, then probably you don't need it for the CI. But the developers themselves who build it on their laptop throughout the day would probably want to accelerate their work to be much more effective. But I strongly suggest that companies running only nightly builds will look at why they do that. If that was because they didn't have enough compute power to run it during the day, then it's a good time to take another look at it.
Okay. The second question is, will it slow down the developer machines assisting in builds?
No, not at all. Actually, it will speed it up because, as I mentioned before, you can configure Incredibuild to distribute the entire work to other machines. So my machine is completely available. Now, let's say that one of the machines that is helping you is my laptop, and I need it right now. As soon as I start using it, Incredibuild release all these cores that it grabbed from my machine and look for another machine to run it on. So we are very appreciative of people that Incredibuild agent is installed on, and we're trying not to slow them down. So as soon as they need their machine back, we automatically release it.
Okay, thanks. And the third question is, my Android build is taking more time. Can we automate Android builds using Incredibuild?
So it depends. If you run an Android app, you're probably using Java, and we don't support Java. If you build it on C++, some companies do, then definitely yes. But if you're running a customized operating system on top of Android, it's probably taking you hours to build it, and you should better try it with Incredibuild. It will be way faster.
Oh, thank you so much, Asif. Thank you so much for your time and addressing all the queries. Guys, please feel free to post your queries in chat, or you have our mail ID in the screen. Feel free to send us your mail, and we'll be happy to have another 1 hour session or 30-minute session dedicatively for your business case as well.
Yeah. So basically, there is nothing wrong. You want to try, even though you are doing fully nightly builds and all. Just give a try with this technology and see if we can reduce those 90 hours into minutes. Because that will really change the overall productivity of your project as well as company. And as you mentioned, it's free of cost, and You don't need to set up all the build tools on various machines. It's just agent which will which you have to install on the other machine. The good thing about in Incredibuild is it's very simple to install and run. It is not one of those heavy tools which will take a lot of your time. Some of the POCs we have done couple of hours or two to 3 hours. So I invite you guys to give a shot to this technology, so you also learn. You will know the gaps. It will tell you the gaps where your build is getting stuck. So you may end of the day you may buy or not, but at least you will find out because of which dependency the whole defect is gone. So we'll be happy to provide you a free copy. Please be in touch with us, and we are here to answer any question. If someone wants to unmute and ask questions, we are here to answer that as
well. Guys, you can unmute yourself and then you can start asking questions. Okay, I got a question from chat. Hi Shiva. Okay, that's a different thing. Okay, during build, it will be only use RAM and CPU, not local disk. Where will you see build data after build is completed?
So that's a good question. I did not touch that. Thank you for reminding me. So one of the important things that would actually be step number 4 in the process is that Incredibuild collects all the output from all these agents, those remote machines, and collect it back into one big output that then the developers see in their laptop. So if in other words, if I installed Incredibuild on your machine and you don't even know, everything will work as if it did before. It just works much faster. All the assets, all the output files, everything flows back into your computer. So you really don't have to do anything to make this happen.
Okay, one more thing, Asif, what I want to ask is, I believe Incredibuild can fasten the builds compilation, plus it can accelerate the code coverage, and then it can accelerate testing. It can accelerate code analysis as well, right? Can you please touch on some points?
Yes, definitely. We have a list of tools that we support. I gave an example of G-Test. That's one tool that we actually built special integration with, that is getting inside your test code and have the insights, the heuristics to understand how to split it up and run it in parallel. So yes, the answer is definitely yes.
Okay, there is another question that's for Clockwork, I believe. Up to which C++ version Clockwork supports? Debug Clockwork supports up to C++ 11, and we always support up to the latest version. Thank you so much, Debug.
And in Incredibuild is working with Clockwork, so your Clockwork build also can be reduced. So we are already talking about that integration.
In some closed areas, we have already done some integrations where if your native build is taking 2 hours, Clockwork build will theoretically take 3 hours to 4 hours. But Incredibuild can make it happen in 15 to 20 minutes. So we can reduce 90 to 95% of your build time using Incredibuild with your native build tools, and if you are running it with Clockwork.
And people who are using Coverity, it is reducing their build time of Coverity as well, and Coverity is already integrated, right, Asif?
Yeah, I just want to mention that both Clockwork and Coverity are currently in process of integration. In some cases, it works out of the box. In some other cases, we need to be involved. So anyway, if you are using Coverity or Clockwork or Vector or any other code analysis tool, we are happy to work with you on the acceleration.
Okay, so any more questions, guys? We are reaching almost extent of our time. We'll be happy to answer questions offline, and please feel free to try this tool on your projects, on your builds, unit test cases, and other time-consuming things. So I'd like to thank you, all of you, for attending today's webinar. I hope you would have got some information about this product, as well as how you can improve your build time. And I thank Asif for giving such a lovely presentation. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ankur. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. We'll be in touch. We will send you the recording of this webinar, so you can circulate in your team. Thank you so much.